With the Avengers stricken from history, what became of the Marvel cosmic scene? Well, let's hop into the pages of Heroes Reborn issue number 4 and find out together, shall we? So then, much like the last few issues that have preceded it in this series, this brand new issue takes a member of the Squadron Supreme and gives them the spotlight. This time around, it's Dr. Spectrum, the Green Lantern pastiche. What is very different, though, about Spectrum as opposed to Hyperion or Blur, who seemed like otherwise good people being corrupted by evil forces, Spectrum seems like he was maybe never good, and has currently taken to his brand new job as Galactic Sheriff with great gusto, so much to the point that all the other warring alien races have come together for the sole purpose of trying to get back at this guy for making their lives such hell. To strike back at Dr. Spectrum, these united alien races have spared absolutely no expense in hiring the greatest bounty hunter the universe has ever known, Rocket and his talking rifle Groot. Which I suppose means Rocket is either filling the Lobo role or the Bulfunga role if we're only using Green Lantern-centric characters. Now what exactly makes this world's version of Dr. Spectrum so bad? Well, he's a giant xenophobe. He hates aliens for just existing and relishes in getting to blow them off the face of the earth. He also dreams of bringing American exceptionalism to the stars and making it the sort of place that Americans could one day inhabit. Honestly, as far as Marvel deconstructions of the DC Justice League go, this one is probably the most damning and honestly the most clever too. The Green Lanterns have always been space cops and Hal Jordan has always been more right-wing leaning. So why not, for dramatic effect, turn all of that up to 11? Now Dr. Spectrum is a gladiator space cop, shouting right-wing slogans and rhetoric while literally being the embodiment of American manifest destiny throughout the stars. Also, despite having Doctor in his name, Spectrum isn't all that smart. In fact, he straight up admits he has no idea how his Power Prism even works, and frankly, he doesn't want to know. Why have facts when he has religious zealotry on his side, believing that because the powers work for him, that must mean that God is A, real, and B, doing a great job? I'd ask you to keep that God stuff in mind too, because it's going to make the end of this comic that much more interesting. Now, with Spectrum revealing himself to be a truly unlikable villain, it means that you'll find yourself probably rooting for bounty hunter Rocket to kick this guy's ass, and indeed, Rocket pulls out all the stops. He's got his Groot rifle that fires smaller Groots. He's got negative guns, parasite-based weapons, everything that anyone could ask for, yet despite how much Rocket throws at Spectrum, he just keeps coming back time and time again. For a second there, it seems like all might be lost. Dr. Spectrum breaks Rocket's Groot rifle. Luckily, he has way more Groots where that came from, and just when it looks like the bad guy has delivered Rocket the killing blow, the former Guardian ends up pulling out one last great ace in the hole, and that is Rocket taps into the Starbrand power, which blows Spectrum away as he thought Hyperion had locked that stuff away in the negative zone. You know, now's actually probably a good a time as any to celebrate the art. I positively love that the character of Dr. Spectrum gets art that's filled with so many beautiful little pastel colors. Another great art gag comes in the internal monologue boxes. All throughout the story, Dr. Spectrum spouts the most vile, horrible shit, and yet it has this beautiful rainbow box to it. The fight eventually culminates into one giant showdown. Rocket takes the power of the Starbrand and builds it into one giant gun. Little did he know, though, that Dr. Spectrum has something similar in his arsenal, an entire Cancerverse hidden inside one of his prisms. The battle is close, but in the end, Cancer ultimately ends up winning. Dr. Spectrum opts to drown Rocket in a frickin' supernova to try and give up the people that hired him. In the end, it would seem that the only thing that Rocket is really protective of is his ship, and again, that'll make more sense later on. For you see, on Rocket's ship with another Groot is actually Brandy Selby, aka the brand new Starbrand child that the Avengers had been looking after before the universe had been rewritten. More on her, though, in the backup story. As the main story comes to a close, Dr. Spectrum returns to Earth to have a one-on-one with President Coulson. Spectrum says that he's getting a little suspicious of the other members of the Squadron Supreme. They keep going on about other worlds and how things may be different than they were before. This meeting also just so happens to take place in a church, and when we get to look at one of the bills in the collection plate, it says One Nation under Mephisto. In fact, this entire church is actually dedicated to Mephisto. That's the god that Dr. Spectrum kept going going on about and said that he owed so much to, and just like that, everything starts to make more sense. Now from there we get our brief little backup story, which involves the main members of the Avengers. How interesting that the Squadron Supreme and Coulson have grown so powerful, they've been able to force the main heroes into the backups of their own comics. We see how the baby Starbrand came to this universe and got picked up by Rocket and Groot. They raised the girl for a little bit, and overall actually ended up becoming quite close. Now that Rocket is dead, Brandy wants nothing more than to go to Earth and avenge him, but Groot knows it's a bad idea despite her amazing power. Perhaps she won't have to go it alone though. As the comic comes to a close, Brandy is approached by Captain Okoye of the Wakanda Space Fleet. And so that was Heroes Reborn issue number 4, everybody, and I gotta say I actually ended up quite enjoying this one. Visually it was a treat for the eyes. I love the use of colors. I like that we're seeing not all members of the Squadron Supreme are as equally in on Coulson and by extension Mephisto's plans as others. Some might be saved, but some like Spectrum here might be more difficult. This might also be some of Jason Aaron's most clever writing yet when it comes to actually deconstructing members of the Justice League. Essentially, he's saying Green Lantern is pretty scary already and you only need to tweak a couple things before he becomes a full-on bad guy. Then of course you have the reveal that Mephisto is the one pulling the strings on this one. Mephisto, who more or less has been the main overarching villain of Aaron's entire Avengers run up until this point. The big red baddie couldn't beat the Avengers BC in the past, he couldn't beat the modern day Avengers in the here and now, so instead he made a plot to unmake them from history. Not a bad villainous scheme as far as they go. Overall, I think I'd feel comfortable giving this one an 8 out of 10, and I hope the rest of these Hero Reborn issues take more wild creative swings like this one did.
Hey there everyone, Cape Joel again, and I want to thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. As always, if you liked what you see, be sure to like, subscribe, comment. It really helps drive engagement and helps me out too. Also, if you are a patron, which you can become for as little as $1 a month, you will get exclusive content that no one else can ever see, and you'll get to see the Comic Multiverse podcast before anyone else too. You can check out all this and more down in the description. And until next time everyone, this has been Cape Joel, and I'll see you all next time. Cheers.